Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Expendable Show. Today, we have a special exclusive with the Georgia GOP Assistant Secretary, JaQuon Stembridge. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's so good to be here.
That's awesome. So, for those of you who don't know, and I know I have a lot of viewers that will watch this that are from out of state. So, I'm going to kind of fill you in on the story of how I came across JaQuon. So it was kind of fun. It's kind of a funny story. So those people that watch that know me, they know I see everything. I watch everything. I observe everybody in every room that I'm in. And, that's part of my old cop days. But I was at the Surf and Turf event for Congressman Mike Collins. And I sat at the back like I do everywhere I go, just so I can watch everybody. And I watched this young man work the room, and he was noticeable. And I'm like, man, this guy is at every table, shaking every hand. He's got a smile on his face. People are gravitating to him. Who is this guy? And finally, there were so many tables. It was a pretty big event. So all these tables were there. So it took him a while to get to the back of the room. And so once he got back there, he made it to me, and he shook my hand. And he said, glad you can be here. And then I figured out it was this young man right here, JaQuon Stembridge. And that was you had such a big impact on how I view how politicians, people in politics should do things. You made your way to every single person in that room, and you made sure that your presence was felt. And I thought that gave me some big points with you that I really liked how you approached it. You did it. You brought a smile. You brought peace. You were very inviting. And that's what some politicians don't have that. It's just naturally they don't have it, but you have it. And so I'm excited. I'm very excited to see, where this all goes in your future. I'm going to be following you. I'll probably be your biggest fan. I'm going to watch it.
Thank you.
So for the viewers, let's start from the beginning. So JaQuon, where are you from?
Okay. Like I said, my name is JaQuon Stembridge. I'm 18 years old. I'll be 19 on Saturday, but I am from Greene County, Georgia. I'm from Greene County, Georgia, which a lot of people have no idea what that's at. But if you live in Georgia, if you ever heard of Lake Oconee, well, it's the same county as Lake Oconee, and it's 30 minutes south of Athens if you're a Bulldogs fan.
Hey, I think everybody in the state's a Bulldogs fan. I think it's a rule.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I had some voters who told me, well, we're going to vote for you, but we're rooting for Tech. So,
ooh, I mean, that's not so bad. At least they didn't say Roll Tide.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I don't know if you can confirm this for me. I didn't realize that Lake Oconee was in your county. So
Yeah.
I was coming back from Tybee Island one time, and I'm pretty sure I saw a gator in Lake Oconee. I don't know if it's for sure. Maybe it was a log.
I've heard rumors of alligators being there. I've never seen it firsthand, but I've heard rumors, and I'm pretty sure it was confirmed at least once or twice within the last 4 years that there's been gators. What I've heard happen is that people move from Florida to bring their gators, and they put them out there in the lake, and they grow big, and it's not very good for the lake though. But I've heard that that's happened a few times.
Either way, even if there's gators in Lake Oconee, I would rather be in that water than Lake Lanier.
Oh yeah, for sure. I have never visited Lake Lanier. I've never planned on visiting Lake Lanier.
Cursed. I can't do it.
Yeah, I've heard horror stories there.
I'm not doing it. I'll deal with the gators in Lake Oconee. So your area that you're from is a small town, rural kind of area, right?
Yep.
So what was your life like before you got into politics?
Yeah. So, well, I guess that goes into a little bit about me, about my story here. So, I mean, I grew up an only child. So if you never heard my story, I grew up an only child. I grew up in a single parent household. I grew up in a Democrat household. I was raised by what I would like to call a generational Democrat. My mom has been a Democrat her entire life. simply because it just seemed like the right thing to do as a Black person. So I always kind of just was taught that the Republican Party was this party of just rich white men that care nothing about the values that people like me cared about. So before I got involved in politics, I did the average kid stuff, the things that a kid would do. But in some aspects, I would say that I never really did things that kids do. I never played sports or anything like that. I was always in the books. I was always into the academics type of things. I've always been a mama's boy. So I've always hung out with my mom a lot since it was just me and her here. But when COVID happened, I had this tradition that I always would do. I would always go to my uncle's house whenever we had like a school break or anything like that. So when COVID happened, the school was like, well, you all going to be out for 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. Remember that? Everybody said, just 3 weeks. And so that 3 weeks turned into months and we were locked down. They took away the schools. They took away my social time, the government. And so when that happened, I went to my uncle's house. I was locked in my room for a long time, not literally, but the government did not want us going anywhere. So I had nothing better to do than learn more about myself, to learn more about politics. And so I did just that. I started doing my own research. I wanted to learn for myself about conservatism, being a Republican, Democrats, and all this stuff. And so during that time, I tell people it was a blessing and a curse because it allowed me to do my own research and to learn more and to realize that the Republican Party was not the party of rich white men who only cared about themselves. That was a false narrative that I learned. And I also realized I did not like having the government in full control of my life. So that's how I got involved in politics. And I've been involved ever since 2020.
And that's, so when you break it down, whenever you decide to run for president someday, when the Democrats start getting mad at you, they can blame Dr. Fauci for your rise to success. Because had COVID not happened, you may still be a Democrat.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah.
See, you got to look. It's all about perspective sometimes. But I think your story is great, and how, and I think a lot of Americans can probably relate to this, where they've gone through life and they've had this, kind of an awakening.
Yeah.
Like the things that I thought were true weren't quite true, and now that I know what truth is, I can build off of that. I can build who I am off of the truth instead of the deceptions and the false narratives and whatnot, the things that we've had to go through for the last 10 years in this country as the mainstream media has become worse and worse and worse. I shouldn't have to do shows like this. The media should be doing it, but we can't trust the media.
That's true.
I should be swimming out in my pool right now. But
it's a nice day.
I think your story is fantastic. I think your mom, even though she started as a Democrat, she did a fantastic job raising you, and hats off to her. And we were talking at the Henry County monthly meeting, and you were talking about your mom, and somebody had asked you, well, is she still a Democrat? So what is the answer to that question?
Well, the honest answer is I think she is still a Democrat, but she is more open now to listening to the Republican policies, voting conservatively. I truly believe that she did vote Republican for the first time in the last election cycle, but you didn't hear that from me. But she is now more open to listening to it. She's a work in progress, is what I like to call it. Work in progress. She is still learning more about the Republican policies and what we actually stand for. But yeah, so she is a work in progress. And I think the more we work on her, the more she'll be willing to vote Republican in the future. But for now, I don't want to say she's still a Democrat, but she's in that water going somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked that when you responded to that at the meeting, and is basically just how you responded just now. And I think that the way your mom handled it is how I would want everyone to handle it. I'm not saying that somebody can't be a Democrat or that somebody can't be a Republican, but your mom took the time to look, just like you did. You took the time to really dissect things down and say, well, where do I really stand? And I think that's a testament, to being an individual as opposed to being a robot. And we have a lot of people in this country that are still stuck in, CNN told me this, Fox News told me this. And it really takes cognitive thinking, and you have to sit down and really look at the principles and the facts of things. And I think that you and your mom did it exactly how I would envision it should be done. So y'all did a great job. Hopefully we can get your mom all the way on board. That's going to be the
we
goal.
gotta keep praying for that, keep working for that.
So when you started to figure out that, hey, maybe I lean a little bit more conservative, what was a factor that contributed into you getting into politics? Because that's being conservative is one thing, but going into politics, that's a whole other animal.
Yeah. Well, I'm a very ambitious person, and whenever I see things are not working as fast as I would like it, I'm want to just jump into it and be like, no, what, I'll do it. So during that time when COVID happened, I didn't see any other young people. I saw so much on social media of young people complaining about the COVID policies, but no one was doing anything in my generation to actually change that, to actually get people elected who wouldn't shut you in your home, who wouldn't try to take control of your life. And that at the time were the Democrats. I remember briefly during that time, during COVID, I remember the summer of 2020, we had all those riots and stuff that was going on, even in Atlanta. And the mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, who's now running for governor, she put in a curfew telling grown people, COVID and the riot stuff, you can't leave your house after such and such amount of time. That was ridiculous. So, I said, you know what? I'll just step up. Let me help actually try to get someone reelected at that time, Donald Trump, who will actually make sure that we can in the future try to not have that type of stuff going on in this country. So that's why I got involved in 2020. And then in 2022, I was a field organizer for the Georgia Victory team. Now, an interesting story, which I said is at the Henry County thing, but I don't talk about this a lot. An interesting thing about 2022 was when I first got on with the Georgia Victory team, I wasn't there to be a field organizer. I was 15. I was 15 when I first got on with the Georgia Victory team, which for those of you who don't know what the Georgia Victory team is, it is something that was ran by the RNC, and they send it into all the swing states to help get the Republican candidates there elected. So in 2022, at the beginning of it, I was going to the Georgia Victory team to be a volunteer. And my goal was not to influence the election at the time. It was just to get out the vote in the Republican primary. Right. Because Stacey Abrams was going around the country, going on CNN and all the medias, all the mainstream media saying that, the new voter ID laws that we had and the election integrity laws that we had were racist, and there was voter suppression and Black people couldn't go out to vote. And so we wanted to be able to show that narrative was false, that Stacey Abrams was lying when she was going on the news saying this stuff, and that our election laws on the books were not making it harder to vote. It was making it easier to vote and harder to cheat. But because of my work of doing that and being so successful of getting out the vote, and during that election, I was then asked to join the team as a field organizer, which as a field organizer, you're in charge of this team of people who knock on doors, who make phone calls, who write postcards, who volunteer at rallies, and do everything they can to get out the vote for our Republican candidates and all that good stuff. So I think 2020 was one thing that made me conservative. I think 2022 was the big part that I was like, you know what? I really like this political stuff. I really like being hands-on. So that 2022 was really what made me want to stay in politics and do what I'm doing now.
And I think it's an awesome way to look at it, because you're young and you weren't even a legal adult yet.
Yep.
And so you were fresh. Like I remember what it was like at your age and younger, where when I got an idea, I was, let's go do it, because I had all the energy and the excitement to go do it. And so for you to jump right in there and do that was probably a huge eye opener for a lot of GOP people, because a lot of the GOP members are older, and they have a certain way of doing things.
Yep.
And not saying that it's wrong, but there's a way of doing things. And then you came in with a ball of fire with all these ideas, and you're ready to go. And you're motivating other people your age to do the same. And
I see one of the things about that, and I said this in one of my speeches, is so like I said, I did the grassroots stuff 2022. In 2023, I got involved in county parties. Now, that's where the real interesting thing happens, because of what you just said, that people like to do things their own way. And that's fine. We can do that. But I also believe that if things are not working, if the membership isn't
Right.
growing with the way that things are going, there might be time for a change. And one of the first panels that I actually spoke on was in Clark County, where they brought in all these young people to come and speak. And I was on their panel, and we talked about why the GOP need to move on from this stuff that wasn't working anymore. You know, what was working, you keep doing it. What's not working, you move on from it. You try something new so you can grow. But luckily in 2023, I met someone named James Cooper, who was the 10th district chairman. And if it had not been for James Cooper, I still don't know if I would be doing all of this, like, you know, the assistant secretary, all that kind of stuff. Because James Cooper, he's the 10th district's GOP chair. And he was so willing to listen to new ideas. He told me on the phone, he was like, you know I'm not young anymore. What can we do to bring in people your age? So he was part of the old guard, but he was willing to listen to new ideas. So as long as the party keeps doing that, I think we'll be very successful in the future.
And that's a testament to James Cooper as well, to see beyond the typical routine. It's not easy to do when you get into a certain age and you start getting into these certain ways of doing things. It's hard to change. And I like that he was able to look at you through a different lens and say, this is going to work. This young man can work. And you're where you're at now. And I don't see it stopping either. And I'm sure, you're just going to go where it takes you, but it's going to go a lot of places. I really like that about that story of how the GOP, certain people in the GOP are starting to be willing to evolve into something. I used to go to the Gwinnett County monthly meetings all the time. And I love Sammy Baker, who was the chair at the time. He's not the chair anymore. Sammy Baker's an awesome guy. But one thing, I used to look around the room and I'm going, where's the youth?
Yeah.
And I thought, man, we have to do something. We have to do something to bring the youth in, because the Democrats are out there working it. They are working the youth. And it didn't seem like we had a plan for bringing, the college age kids into the party and continuing forward. So when you have this new position, and you have responsibilities in this position. So tell everyone what your plan is and what your responsibilities are.
Yeah, well, one of the things I used to always say on the campaign trail was, I said that, we need to follow in the footsteps of Ronald Reagan now and do the things that Ronald Reagan did, which was bring his message to high school campuses, to college campuses. And I said that we needed to meet my generation right where they are to show them that conservatism still works. So we're going to start doing that this fall. We're going to go to the high school campuses. We're going to go to the college campuses. With 2026 right around the corner, which is a very pivotal election year, as you know, it is crucial for all of the grassroots to get stirred up and to do their part of bringing in young people and getting as many voters as possible to come and vote for us. So this fall, I'm going to be teaming up with organizations like Turning Point Action, Americans for Prosperity, and we're going to be going all across this state hosting tailgates, what I like to call the red wave tailgates. We're going to be doing tailgates all across the state. We're going to be actually doing it on college campuses, bringing in the frats, bringing in the sororities. That's something that the Republicans haven't been wanting to do for a while, but we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be bringing those people in to actually show them, okay, this party isn't the party what you see on TV. It's not the party of rich white men with their suit and ties. We are normal people just like you who can have normal conversations. We're going to try to go to the high school football games as well. High schools are a little bit more restrictive, but we're going to try to go there. We're going to do voter registration drives on these college campuses and on these high school campuses for the fall semester. And then for the spring semester, we're still planning some things out. But the fact of the matter is we're going to be everywhere we can be to actually have these meaningful conversations. So there would no longer be us. We would no longer have to rely on other groups to do the work for us, or you don't have to go somewhere and be like, oh, the Democrats are stirring up these young people over here. You're going to actually see the Republicans stirring up young people. And for the first time in so many years, probably since Ronald Reagan, and maybe a little later than that, but probably since Ronald Reagan, I'm hoping that we're going to see a truly revival of young people just running to the Republican Party, being like, you know what? that party does stand for us. That party does stand for our values. And another thing that I'm working on is something that I can't get into too much detail yet, but when I get more information, I'll let you know. But we're working on a piece of legislation that I think minors all across the state, it will impact the entire state, especially minors. It's something I've been working on. Actually, I can tell you a little bit more about it. We're working on trying to work with our state legislator. I'm working on trying to work with our state legislator to ensure that we can stop taxing minors who are working. We have minors who are working their butts off just for the government to take all their money. Minors, as you may know, cannot vote. That is taxation without representation, and that is death from the government. So
I never would have thought of that.
These are the things that I'm working on to bring in. And that goes back to what we just said, thinking outside the box, not doing the same old. Because one of the things that people loved that I said in my final speech at that convention was I said, we need to become the party of the future and stop being the grand old party of the past. And that's the truth. And the only way that we can do that is if we open up this tent to bringing in those new ideas and doing things that young people care about. One more thing about that I want to say about the young people thing, and then we can leave this topic. But one of the things that one of my friends told me I was on the phone with yesterday, it was like, I want to be involved in politics, but I don't have the look for it. And what he meant by that is because he got dye in his hair and he's way different. See, people shouldn't have to think like that when they come to the Republican Party. We should be welcoming everybody into the party, no matter what you look like, no matter how young you are, all that kind of stuff. We should be bringing them in. And so these young people are not going to be 100% like us. They're not going to be as conservative. The fact of the matter is a lot of young people are a little bit more moderate than the rest of us who might be a little bit more conservative. They're a little bit more in the middle. They're a little bit more compromised on some of the values, but with education, anything can be fixed and we can make sure that we can have them actively voting for the Republican Party.
And that's a good point that you bring up about how he was a little conscious of his appearance. And, you're starting to see, I was just watching Fox News today and I was watching, they had Pete Hegseth on. As we know, he's covered in tattoos. Joey Jones, he's covered in tattoos. Lawrence, he's covered in tattoos. So that's becoming more accepted in the GOP, where the tattooed guys are okay, the tattooed women are okay. I don't think the hair is going to be that big of a deal. Yeah. So I would encourage your friend to take that step forward and see what the reaction is. And I think he'll be surprised that he'll be a little bit more accepted than what he had initially thought. So, but it's good that these conversations are happening because they're coming to you as a leader and they're asking you, what do you think? Like, what? I want to do this. I want to get involved, but here's what I'm worried about. And then you get to come in and say, look, we're people under God. Yeah. You're welcome. And I think a lot of, when you watch like YouTube videos of like the Democrats that go to like Trump rallies, they think they're going to get burned at the stake or whatever. And then they go and find out, they're like, well, everybody was really nice to me. I wasn't expecting that. So, and that's what I always tell people, like, go watch a Trump rally, go to a Trump boat rally. People are tossing you beer. You want a beer? Get on the boat. They don't care. They don't ask you what your political affiliation is. They just say, you want to come on the boat? And you go to a Democrat event and everyone's angry. Yeah. Like they have to have high blood pressure. Yeah. So, I always explain it to people that way. Like you look at the Trump people, everyone's happy. And then you go to a Nancy Pelosi event and it's like, there's like steam blowing out of her ears and everybody's so mad. Yeah. I don't want to be mad. I want to be happy.
I know. I want to be a happy warrior. That's what I tell people. We got to be happy, conservative warriors fighting this fight and not mean, grumpy, miserable people or people who never want to join the party. So yeah, you're right. We cannot become like the Democrats. Also about that hair comment, quiet as kept. I did tell my friend, I was like, listen, I got dreads in my head. You can't really see on this camera right now, but I am like I'm one of the first young, maybe in general, one of the first Republicans to be in an actual position to actually have like dreads. And people don't understand how historic like this truly is. Like
You're the youngest in history, right?
the youngest in history. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, when you think about it, when you think about what the party has been looking like for years, or what we have known the Republican Party for, like I say, knowing it for being that party of rich white men. Well, that party of rich white men just elected a young 18-year-old black guy named JaQuon with dreads in his head as their assistant secretary. Overwhelmingly, this is not your. We always say this. This is not your grandpa's Republican Party. This is
Right.
not the party that the media wants it you think. So I think we are becoming better. We're becoming more open.
I agree, because overall, Georgia is tentatively known to be a good old boy state.
Mm-hmm.
So for you to become an elected amongst those peers of a good old boy state, that says something about the change that's been happening, and it's phenomenal. I love the direction that it's going. I think it's going to bring so much prosperity to people who used to not want to get involved in politics, or they just didn't care enough. I think it's great. I think the GOP's heading in the right direction. I'm just hoping that more states start to do what you're doing in Georgia and encourage the youth in other states to get active and to see things from both sides of the fence. I think that's the only way they're going to properly get educated, instead of the indoctrination that a lot of them go through in their colleges and universities. Yeah. So you're doing a phenomenal thing. So outside of politics, what does JaQuon like to do?
Yeah, well, JaQuon likes to travel. I love to go places. I like to go on cruises with my family. Sometimes we're going on a cruise later this year. Actually, we usually fun fact, me and my family go to Vegas every year. Just so you know.
Okay.
Now, I'm not old enough to gamble. Don't worry about that. I'm not doing any gambling. I'm not doing any drugs or anything like that. We just go there. I like the scenery. I like hanging out with my family there. It's always fun to be with family. I like hanging out with my friends. So whenever I get the opportunity, whenever I'm not doing politics or I'm not doing anything else, then I go hang out with my friends. I'm also a percussionist on the side. On every Sunday, I play the drums at my church, so that's fun. I do that. I also sing in my choir, so it's also kind of fun as well. So those are kind of things I do. I like to go fishing. I haven't been fishing in a long time though, because I've been campaigning ever since March. I haven't been able to sit down and actually go do that yet, but I'm hoping to get to it maybe sooner rather than later. But I like to do those kind of things for fun.
What is your choice fish that you like to catch?
Honestly, I catch whatever. I go with my uncle, so whatever he wants to go do is what I'm fine with. I mean, I was invited by him once to go to Alabama to do deep sea fishing, so to go fish for Lord, what is it called? Not anyway, it'll come to me later. Red snapper, I think is what it's called. Yep. So yeah, we was gonna go do that, but I didn't go that year. But I'm hoping to go this year. So.
Well, hopefully you get to go. The deep sea fishing is a fun time. Yeah. There's a lot that you're involved in, and so I like the older people are not going to be able to carry the schedule that you have, where you're still making time for your friends, to be a normal person, to keep rooted to the people that have been there for you, to do all the family things. It's unbelievable the path that you've taken, and how you're still just sitting here in the chair, calm, cool, and collected. I can't sense any stress on you at all, even though I'm sure there's probably some there. I don't know if I'd be able to handle it like you do.
Yeah, thank you. I do my best. I tell people I think it's best. There was some people, for example, when I was running, they was like, I just one man, it wasn't a lot of people, but one guy was like, I'm not voting for you. Can't vote for 18-year-old, something like that, whatever. Well, I tell people, I think that the 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, that age group is probably the best group to start teaching them how to do things for a lot of reasons. But my favorite reason is because it's the age where they don't have any real responsibility yet. Like, they don't have kids. They don't have a wife, more than likely. So it's the right age to do it, because once you turn 25, that's when you start getting married, you start getting a real job, you do all this other stuff. They can't put as much time into it. Like my friend, For example, James Dvorak, he's a fellow young Republican, but he's older than me. He's married, he has a son, he has real responsibilities now. So he told me, he was like, yeah, dude, you did this at the right age because this is the perfect time for you since you don't have anything else besides college. And education is very important to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. But yeah.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Politics is going to slip down the priority list as you build your family up. So I think you're right on with that. And I never thought about it that way, but I think the sooner into that, like, pre-college and into the college years that you instill your political belief system, the better you're going to be at understanding what's going on. Because there's a lot of people in this country that don't understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. They don't understand, how the tax system works. They don't understand, there's a lot of complex, things out there, and trying to explain what President Trump is doing when it comes to the tariffs to people that don't understand how tariffs work is very frustrating sometimes.
Yeah. A lot of uneducated people, and that's the problem that we have. We can go in, that can be a whole different topic for a different day, but the amount of people in this country who are uneducated is sad, which is why I say it's our job now to educate the young people. The Democrats are indoctrinating them. But see, one of the things that we've learned, it used to be a saying, the Republican Party used to think that, okay, well, the older you get, the more conservative you get, because you start a family, you actually have to pay bills, so now you actually care. So now you start getting more conservative, and that is true. That still is statistically true. But we no longer have time to wait for them to get older enough to experience that responsibility. We have to start talking to them young, high school, college level, because if we can go ahead and educate them now, if we can go ahead and instill those conservative values in them while they're young, they're less likely to depart from those values. But yeah, like you said, we do have an education problem. So we got to start educating people on conservatism and what it actually stands for, which is why I said at that Henry County meeting, we need to frame our party to young people as the party of opportunity. We want to give you the opportunity to be able to go buy your first home, to start a family, and to live the American dream that we have all heard about our entire lives. That's what we need to start telling people that we are, because we are the party of opportunity. Think about it. When Donald Trump was running for president in 2024, the main things we heard about was the economy, the economy, the economy. People could not afford to go buy eggs. They couldn't afford to go buy food. This was just, they couldn't afford gas. So they didn't have the opportunity to do anything. And the Democrats, Kamala Harris and all of the Democrats, they wanted to stop my generation from having those opportunities, all in the name of them indoctrinating people, because they wanted to have full control of this generation so they could control how they think and the things they do. So I think we need to start branding ourselves as the party of opportunity. That's what I'm going to do every time I go and speak to people.
And I think when you look at that, just to further elaborate on what you just said, which is exactly correct, when you look at the Democrats versus Republicans, the Democrats they've become the party of they want their constituency to be dependent upon the government. To where the conservatives are, we want you to be dependent upon yourself. And I think President Trump has done a very good job of really mapping that out and showing us that, I know a lot of the Democrats are mad about, how he wants to, get people off of public assistance and everything, but President Trump's right. You can't live off of public assistance. If you're disabled, that's one thing. If you have whatever condition, that's another thing. But if you're able-bodied and you've been sitting around for 6 months and you've made no effort to get a job, why is the taxpayer paying for you? And we've seen enough taxpayer waste, probably to last the next 100 years. So it is time for us as Americans to do our part to help President Trump get this agenda done. We as voters have an obligation as well. So, and when we have bad candidates, it's we as voters that are responsible for those bad candidates because we voted them in. And I think there's a lot of voters that just wait on these politicians to do this and do that. No, it's our responsibility as well, because we bought into that principle and we voted them in. So I think there's a lot of accountability and things like that we need to get back to and say, look, we it's okay to admit you made a mistake. It's okay. It's okay.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I was looking at this card earlier today, and a quote came by that I really like. It said that bad politicians are elected by people who don't vote. And the fact of the matter is, Republicans have done a terrible job in the past. 2024, we did a great job. But in years past, we've done a terrible job of actually getting out the vote, like in midterm years. So like 2022, 2026, right. We're doing a terrible job. And then we complain about the bad politicians like Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. Well, why are Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff in office? Well, because people decided not to go out and vote. Right. The people who voted for Trump, some of them stayed at home and didn't go out and vote. We cannot allow for that to ever happen again. So yeah, you're right.
I mean, they had a political strategy. The Democrats had I'm going to admit, the Democrats had a pretty good political strategy for Kelly Loeffler and Herschel Walker, and it hurt their public image. So they painted Kelly Loeffler as this billionaire elitist that doesn't care about anybody, and people bought it. And even though we all know that Kelly Loeffler is very rooted, she's a good human being, and she cares about her country. But they had full access of negative media, and they utilized it to their maximum. And so we have to, when we look at the midterms coming up, we could face that same problem. So I think we need to get really proactive with that, and I think we will be. I feel like we have a much better strategy when it comes to looking at who's running and how and who are we running against. Obviously, we need to get Ossoff and Warnock out of there. Neither one of them have really done anything in their tenures. I was just auditing Jon Ossoff the other day, and I'm like, what is this guy? He has done nothing.
Well, Jon Ossoff, he's definitely done something. He just hasn't done it for us. He has spent more time fighting for illegal immigrants to have rights than he's done for the people of Georgia to have rights. He spent more time fighting over women and men being in girls' sports than the real issues that we care about at the kitchen table, So I think you're right. I mean, we have on that Senate race, I think Republicans have a really good shot of beating Jon Ossoff. We have great candidates who have already stepped up to run. Buddy Carter. You got Reagan Box, who's more of the grassroots, or she's running as a grassroots candidate. Like I said, Buddy Carter is running as a MAGA warrior. John King, the insurance commissioner, is also running on his story of him being Hispanic and what he's went through, his life experiences. So I think people will really enjoy that. You hear rumors going around about Mike Collins possibly running for Senate, and we know that he fought hard to get that Lake and Raleigh Act passed, so I think people will really appreciate that. I don't think I missed anyone on that, but there's a lot of people who are thinking about running for that race from what I hear, and I think any of those candidates would be 10 times better than Jon Ossoff, so I'm looking forward to campaigning with whoever our Republican nominee is.
Yeah, I'm not real sure who I would even pick out of that group. That's going to be a tough one at the primary. I'm going to be like, who do I pick? Every one of I want all of them to win. I'm going to feel bad because there's going to be I first heard Reagan Box speak. I really liked her platform. And everybody knows Buddy Carter. I like Buddy Carter. There's some really good candidates. If Mike Collins jumps in the Senate race, I'm a huge Mike Collins fan. That's going to be a tough one for me I'm going to already be on his box in the ballot. It's going to be a tough one. And but the good thing is our stable's deep in Georgia. And I think that's going to pay huge dividends. And we've seen the failures of Ossoff. Did you know that Ossoff has I think he's in the bottom 3% of missing votes.
Oh, really?
He doesn't show up to Congress half the time.
Well, I would say it's surprising, but it's not. It's the typical politician. The AJC the other day, they had asked me a question. They said, who's a politician you look up to? And I told them, I look up to Jody Hines, but besides that, I don't typically look up politicians because politicians will let you down. Okay. We just, you can't be dependent on these politicians to do anything for you. And John Ossoff is the definition of a politician. So, I mean, it's not that surprising. He did run off, to be fair, he ran a campaign off of being a far left lunatic. And then when he went to DC and started being far left, everybody's like, "Oh, that's not what we voted for." Well,
Yeah.
if you don't vote, that is what you voted for. So yeah, we have.
You can literally look at his voting record and you can see where that must have happened because he started to go more moderate on his voting. If you look at his voting record in Congress, like I was like, whoa, he almost kind of sided with some Republicans on some things.
Well, he's trying to label himself as the moderate now, but
yeah, you can see it.
You don't let him fool you. We need to get rid of him.
Oh, I'm not fooled. I'm definitely not fooled by him. Yeah, he's been against Israel on everything, and he's Jewish.
Yeah.
How do you do that? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm confused. But that's not that important. I mean, it is, but it isn't. So, if you had to pick one of your favorite places in all of Georgia to go visit, where is it at?
Oh, that's a hard question. I mean, I truly love all of Georgia. Let me give you a few different ones for different reasons. I would go to South Georgia for the hospitality, but all the bugs in your face is really annoying and making me, I just don't like that. But the people of South Georgia are amazing. I love South Georgia. I mean, I grew up in Greene County, so I won't use that as a good place to go, even though that's my home. So it makes me want to go to sleep. But South Georgia, definitely. And then I also, I don't know a place that I like the mountains, but I can't say I like to go to Northwest Georgia yet. Northwest Georgia is growing on me, though. I really do like Northwest Georgia. It's really nice up there. It is some nice people up there as well, but the area, the scenery, the mountains, I like that. But I will be honest with you, when I think about a good place to go, I always think of Macon. And the reason why I think of Macon, Warner Robins, the reason why I think of Warner Robins is because of the military base there and because of they have a Buc-ee's there. And I love people who know me that I love Buc-ee's because I love going there and getting their turkey barbecue sandwiches. It is very delicious. So I love Georgia. Those are my top three. Anywhere Northwest Georgia, Warner Robins, Georgia, and South Georgia because of the hospitality down there. So.
Right. And this message was brought to you by Buc-ee. No, I get it, man. Buc-ee's is exciting. Yeah. I go in there and I'm just like, there's so much happening. And then the guys at the standers, they started chanting things and like, what is going on in here?
Yeah, my first time going to Buc-ee's, we were driving back from somewhere in Florida and we stopped at the Buc-ee's, I think at Warner Robins, and I was amazed to go in there of the scenery, but then I was even more amazed when I tasted a bite of the turkey barbecue sandwich, and then I was even more amazed when I had their I think it was pecans, I think, with the little, anyway, it was really good. It was some really good stuff. I had the opportunity to go back again a few months ago because I went down to the 8th District Convention, and me and my friend James Cooper, we stayed in a hotel down there for the convention. So I ended up stopping at Buc-ee's one of those nights. It was good to be there, I tell you that.
So the South is known for barbecue. So where does Buc-ee's compare to what we have in Georgia?
Well, what part of that exactly? Because I mean, Buc-ee's, I never had like their pork barbecue or beef barbecue and that. I don't eat pork or beef, so that's one thing that stands out here. So because of me not eating pork or beef or anything like that, and because of me eating just turkey, that's the only place I've been recently that actually serves turkey barbecue in that way. So that's why it stands out so much to me.
I think
just disclaimer, by the way, I am not Muslim. If anyone is wondering, because I had that happen once, I'm not Muslim. I just don't eat it because I don't think it's very healthy for you. Listen, I was Maha, Make America Healthy Again, before it was cool. That's what I like to tell people.
You know what? Just to bring Maha up, I'm a huge supporter of that. I do everything that I can to put as the best things in my body as possible. So when I started learning about the dyes and stuff, I was like, man, I can't ingest that stuff anymore. Like, so Robert Kennedy really brought a lot of things to my attention that I did not know.
Yeah.
And then as I researched in it and I was able to confirm that he was right, it really opened my eyes to some things. And then I started thinking, why are the Democrats bashing on this guy so much? He's trying to make us live longer.
Yeah.
It made no sense. I was so like very confused. Because you don't like him, then we could just keep America unhealthy. Okay.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I think Democrats just want something to be angry at. They need something to go against. And just to clarify for the viewers out there, when I talk about the Democrats, I'm not talking about the everyday voter. I'm talking people who are in control, the politicians, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Maxine Waters, the Jasmine Crockett's of the world. Those are the people who I'm referring to.
I have nightmares about Maxine Waters.
Well, if you've had nightmares about Maxine Waters, you have not seen Jasmine Crockett yet, I guess.
I have seen Jasmine Crockett, but
terrible.
So Jasmine Crockett hypnotizes me because there is a sense of beauty there. So I like, she's like a really like a witch that has magical powers and then like seduces you with beauty. So that's my Jasmine Crockett spiel. I always tell everybody, she's like, I'm pretty sure she's a witch. Because I get hypnotized by her when she speaks. It doesn't matter what she says. I'm just like, oh, Jasmine Crockett. I don't know what it is. She's got some kind of gift or something.
Yeah, I guess.
But I can't believe she hasn't been censored over and over and over again. She is she says nothing positive ever.
Yeah,
it's tough. It's tough to hear that. And I feel bad because a lot of our conservative congressional people in the House and the Senate are always on defense all the time. So it makes it tough to really get anything done in Congress when you're constantly getting nitpicked over issues that aren't even that relevant. It's not what the American people are voting on. When a lot of the GOP guys just want to say, look, we have to deal with these issues that the American voter needs us to, they've asked us to do. And in history, and I know you're still young, JaQuon, but this isn't something that I'm used to seeing, because before President Trump came along and started checking off stuff on the list of campaign promises, we didn't have candidates that did that.
Right.
It would just be go into office, write it out, get your forever pensions and whatever, and get out. Now we have campaign responsibility, and President Trump brought that. The Democrats didn't do it either. Neither party was bringing any kind of progress to their campaign promises, and Trump raised the bar for everybody. And if anybody can agree with anything about that, is that Trump raised the bar, because now us voters realize that, hey, we do have power. We voted this guy in. He made promises of some of the issues that we wanted, and he's starting to do them. Yeah. And so now we have, I wouldn't want to be a politician after Trump, because the bar's so high now that you have to start working on your list. You're going to see these guys start really they're going to pick very carefully what they tell the public, because they know that the public's going to hold them accountable now. Like, hey, you said you were going to do this and you have done nothing. So,
I think that's a good problem to have when the public controls their government, because it's we the people who are the government. Right. We control them, not the other way around. So I think that's a good problem to have. I think
we're seeing that out of you, JaQuon. You said we're going to do these things, and you're out there doing them. Yeah. It's just like, we'll go back to the your tailgate. I think that's a phenomenal idea. I love that idea, where you're going to be going to different campuses and tailgating out in the parking lot and stopping and talking to people and showing what conservatism is about. Yeah. And I think that's going to pay off huge for our party, and it's going to be a huge success. And I'm going to attend some of them, because there's some campuses I haven't been on and I want to see them. Mm-hmm. So it gives me an excuse to go, like, check out like Valdosta State or somebody like that, where I've never been there before. I'm a huge football fan.
Have you been to Georgia Southern yet?
No, I haven't.
Well, I've talked to the college Republican chair down there. His name is Hayden Thompson, great friend of mine. He's convinced that it's going to be one of the he's convinced it's going to be the best tailgate that we're going to do.
Okay. I'm gonna put that one on my count. I'm probably gonna go to all of them, honestly. I don't do anything on Saturdays. I'm gonna be like, where are we gonna go watch football games at today?
That's good, because we're doing our last tailgate is going to be a big one. This is the only one I'm going to announce right now, because the rest of them we're still working out some kinks there. But the final, and I think the biggest tailgate we're going to have is going to be the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Georgia Tech versus UGA game. So we're going to do a big tailgate for that. I think that's going to be so fun.
That is going to be a good event, and that even though Georgia Tech is been a little down, there's the rivalry's still there.
Yeah, well, Georgia Tech, UGA only beat Georgia Tech last year by like what?
It was a lot closer than it was supposed to be.
It was 8 overtimes last year for that.
Yeah.
So I was there in person. I was shaking my butt off because I was so cold.
And it was a 5-hour football game.
Yeah. Almost the longest in history, I believe.
Yeah, that's a lot of overtimes, man. I would have been like, somebody please just score. Went to a baseball game at the Brave Stadium that was like that. Oh, they were playing the Cardinals, and it went like 14 innings. And it was on a work night, and I had to work the next morning. I'm like, of course, the baseball game I decided to go to goes 14 innings and lasts 6 hours.
Yeah, I got to get to a Braves game this season. I haven't been to one yet. I'm trying to get to a night game. I just don't like the daytime games. Too hot out there.
You should have went to the one the Young Republicans did, where they had it on the Omni Hotel.
Yeah. I was definitely invited to that. I had a prior commitment, I guess, or something going on. But I wanted to be there, but I couldn't.
The Braves games are fantastic. If you sit in the stadium, they do a very good job. Everything's fan friendly. You're in a very safe area. Everything's great. Truist Park's nice. I love it there.
Yeah.
So go watch a Braves game. You probably get some fans out of there. There's a lot of good people that go to the Braves game.
I'll definitely try to go.
So is there, and this is going to be an ignorant question because you're just starting your new position. Is there an idea of, once you've achieved success and you've set up your job in your elected position, to where the next person that comes in, as long as they follow what's going on, they should achieve success? What would be the next step for JaQuon?
I don't fully know yet. We have to see how the next 2 years go. My main goal right now is just completing this job as assistant secretary. I tell you all the time, I follow in God's calling. You know, when God opens the door, I walk through it. But right now, He has opened the door for me to be assistant secretary. So for the next 2 years, I'm going to be fully focused on getting young people involved in the party. I'm going to be fully involved in helping defeat John Ossoff in 2026, helping make sure we keep a Republican in the governor's mansion, and for a lieutenant governor, and making sure we can keep our majorities in the Georgia legislature. After that, who knows what could happen? I might run for re-election as assistant secretary. I might run for something else. I don't know. We have to see what God calls me to do. But I'm definitely open to doing more and doing bigger things in the future.
So with your position, we were talking about this in McDonough, and you said that you're pretty much the brainchild and the doer of the whole game plan for bringing the youth in.
Yeah.
So I want you to kind of talk about that a little bit, and how you're going to carry that weight for the whole state of Georgia.
Yeah. First of all, so there's a little bit of a misconception with certain people about the assistant secretary role. I had someone say something about following the chairman's agenda and all that good stuff. And let me be clear, I have met with the chairman of the Georgia Republican Party. We had a great meeting, and we talked about my role as assistant secretary and that kind of good stuff. But the assistant secretary isn't a hired role by the chairman or anything like that. So the assistant secretary, I was elected with 77% of the vote. 2/3 of the delegates went and voted for me to serve as assistant secretary based off what I've campaigned off of.
Right.
I campaigned 100% on giving young people a seat at the table and doing whatever I could to bring in those young people, doing as much outreach as possible.
Right.
So they clearly want to do that. So now, yes, I am the brain of doing all the young people things because I'm going to fulfill the promises that I made during the campaign trail. So I'm doing everything I can to help with that. I actually have a special announcement. So keep watching my social media the next few days that I'm going to be announcing to the public soon. It's a good way for you to support these initiatives financially. And that's everyone knows you can't do anything without money. So financially, we're going to need support of the grassroots and the people in the party to help out with those things. So yes, I am the brain behind all the young people things. Think of me as I told the chairman this when I met with him. I said, like how Donald Trump has a border czar? Well, think of me as the youth czar, as the outreach czar.
I like that.
Bringing the message to people who've never heard the conservative message before. So this young people thing, JaQuon Stembridge, assistant secretary, we're getting this ball rolling.
Right. So just to clarify a little bit,
okay.
in the GOP, for those of you in Georgia or in other states that don't understand how GOP elections work, JaQuon is not bound to the chairman.
Yeah.
He has his own constituency. He has his own peers that voted him in. So just like any other politician, once you're voted in, you're held accountable by your constituency. So JaQuon is doing everything exactly right by honoring the campaign promises that got him the 77% vote. So that's how that works. Because I know a lot of people don't understand. Nobody pays attention to who your GOP leaders are.
Yeah.
And I do because that's what I do. But a lot of other people do not. And so people don't understand how it works. And it's just like any other elected position. You have a campaign, you fulfill your campaign promises.
Yeah, it's kind of like, that's true. And I do want to also make sure that there's no misconception here. Me and the chairman do work together. We are having a good relationship, all that kind of good stuff like that. And I've worked very well with everybody on our executive committee because there are some things that we are going to be doing like as a team. Obviously, we all have the same goal of getting Republicans elected. So we are going to all be working on that goal. But everyone on the team is fulfilling their promises. So I'm doing my youth thing. I know the first vice chair, Sally Grubb, she is handling the election integrity unit of the Georgia Republican Party. I know that the second vice chair, I believe, is doing the fundraising and things like that. So we all have a part to play in everything.
Yep. Just a piece of the puzzle.
Yes, sir.
But I want to thank you for coming on my show, JaQuon. It was exciting. I've been anticipating this for a little while now, and you're doing a great job. I think everybody in Georgia would be proud of you, and I can't wait to see where you go with this. It's going to be a big thing. You're heading for big things, and I think a lot of people see that, and we're all rooting for you. And let's get these Senates flipped back red.
Well, we're going to do everything we can to get that done. We're going to need everyone else's help. The first step is I need your help with the young people. I need everybody help with the young people thing. We need your help to make sure that we can fund these tailgates. We can put out these flyers on the college campuses. We can do these voter registrations. So when I get that announcement out, everyone's going to see it on social media. But we look forward to having your help. And I thank you so much for having me on this show so we can actually have the real conversation of how to grow this party and bring those young people in. So thank you so much.
Thank you, JaQuon. Everybody donate all your money to JaQuon's movement. You can't take it to heaven, so you might as well give it to JaQuon. That's it for our show. And put your comments in the comment section. I'll read them. I want to see what you guys think about JaQuon and maybe questions that you may have for our GOP. But I'll see everybody on Thursday. I'm out.